Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. So this morning we're going to do our morning mini, but I have a special little surprise that I'm going to add on at the end. I'm going to do a fall favorite. It's the middle of October, and I just can't get enough beautiful pumpkin art. We did a gorgeous, dramatic white pumpkin last week, and I'm going to kind of follow up with that theme because I think that it's really great to take a subject and paint it multiple times. It's a great way to practice. It's a great way to get better at something. And it's a great way to also create a series, which is not what we're talking about today, but you can't, once you paint something once and you really love it, then paint it again. So we're gonna paint a dramatic pumpkin with a black background. But I'm gonna add in some interesting color schemes and a little twist. And then at the end, I'm going to share with you a little project that I did over the weekend. So I was visiting my aunt and I brought my little fun art kit. And in my fun art kit, I have some little watercolor cards. They look like this. And I just used acrylic paint, but I painted some little envelope and card sets. So we're going to paint some of these at the end today because after we paint our pumpkin on canvas, why not put some on some greeting cards? So I'll show you some of those little cards that I made, and we'll maybe make one or two of them. They're kind of quick, but they're super fun. So let's get started with our little 4x4, shall we? All right, I'm going to turn my camera around, and I'm going to make some adjustments to the height. This has been giving me issues lately, so I'm going to just hope for the best. All right. So let's see. Good morning, Tammy. Hi, Bonnie. We're painting a gorgeous pumpkin today. I mean, this is going to be simple, super simple, but knock your socks off gorgeous. All right, let me just turn this around and all right. So last week we did a little off the easel in the membership for how to draw pumpkins. And drawing pumpkins, you can take it all different ways. You can get very basic, like the ones you're seeing on my sketch pad right now, or you can get more complicated and, get some perspective on it. But we are going to take some of this idea of obviously like a pumpkin, but we're going to put it onto our little canvas and paint it. So hopefully you had time to practice or be inspired by that, and you are super good at painting pumpkins. I'm going to get some black first and paint this black, and then we'll do some little composition sketches because I want this to be not only dramatic in color, but I want it to be dramatic in composition. And I'll explain to you the difference between not dramatic and dramatic. All right, so let's get a little bit of black, and I'm just going to take a number 10 bright, this little guy, and just really quickly paint my canvas black after I adjust my camera again. Why are you keep slipping? All right, there we go. All right, so black. So I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. I love starting my Mondays with a little mini. Just reminds me that painting comes first. Fun comes first. And all the other stuff will find a place and get done. But when you leave painting for last, sometimes it doesn't get done, right? So eat your dessert first. Okay, so painting this black. Now we can paint the edges and the sides also, or we can do that at the very end. So I'm just going to do it at the end so we can get to all the fun things I want to squeeze in this little short time we have together. Okay, so let me grab a paper towel. Okay, so brush cleaning tip, wipe off your brush first and then rinse it. This will keep your brushes and your water cleaner, and then your brushes don't get quite so caked with paint. All right, so I'm gonna put this over here and let it dry, and I'm gonna bring my sketch pad back, and we're gonna do a quick compositional sketch because like I said, I wanted this to be a dramatic painting, so I want the composition to be a little bit more dramatic. So here's an example of, well, first I'll show you my little cards. So this is a card and envelope set. So here's a little card. I don't know if you can see that I put like metallic gold on it, which was just a little fun thing to play around with. I was going to outline it in black, and then I found my gold pen first. So I thought, well, I'll just do gold. And then this is the envelope, which I'm going to write the address across the front. It was actually going to be the card, but I mistakenly painted a big one on the envelope. So this is a little card and envelope set. But the reason I'm showing you this one is because this is a very classic composition, and it's centered. It's actually a little too high. I should have done it a little lower because it's coming up too close to the edge here. So this ideally should be scooched down about 1/4 of an inch because you want more space above a pumpkin than you want below it. But, you know, I was just like goofing around while I was talking with my aunt. And then we have the little flower to the side. So this is beautiful, but it's also just very basic, very predictable, very centered, right? Okay, so that was one little card set. And then this is the other little card set. So here's the card, here's the envelope. Now this one I started to think a little bit more, and I just put the painting a little off-centered. I put the pumpkin a little off-centered. And that gave room for me to bring attention to the stem. So it gives a little asymmetric composition. And then the envelope I put, of course, this time I knew I was painting on the envelope. And I put my little sunflower in the bottom corner. So there's plenty of room for the address, the stamp, the return address, and everything. So this one came out really cute. But that's also a little bit more of a classic full pumpkin center composition. I'll put these over here so we can see them. Let me get this out of the way. So there's one little card and envelope. Here's another little card and envelope. Okay. All right, so for this drawing though, hold on, let me make sure that we're not, whoop. There we go. We're gonna be using our square canvas, so we need to do a little square. And dramatic, I think, can sometimes mean just pushing the envelope a little bit, just sort of making an exaggerated composition. Now, I want to do the pumpkin off-centered. I want it to actually be cut off the canvas. So I could either do the pumpkin, well, actually, I'm going to do one different exercise really quickly. So I'm going to do 4 squares. And I'm going to try out 4 different ways to crop my pumpkin. Now I could do the pumpkin here. Okay. I could do the pumpkin here, half and half. I could do the pumpkin maybe 3/4 of the way in here, like this. That's almost like that one. Or I could try it on this side too. Maybe I'll do it on this side. Okay, so I could have like my little stem here. Pumpkin, I want to put in a sunflower. If I do the sunflower here, I could do a sunflower here. That would be kind of in the middle, and there's my stem. If I do the sunflower here, that's kind of nice. The sunflower's down in the corner. On this one, I could do the sunflower maybe here, which would be a little kind of centered. So do you see how I'm kind of playing around with very different compositions and seeing which one do I like the best? And I kind of am leaning towards this one. This one has a little bit more of the drama that I was looking for, and I want to really highlight my sunflower as well. The other thing I'm going to add in here is I'm going to add some eucalyptus, which I love silver dollar eucalyptus, so I want to put some of those in there. But the sunflower is going to be pretty prominent because I think that was the most exciting part of this little painting. I really loved the sunflower, how that came out. Okay, so let's get on to our little painting here. I know what composition I want. I'm going to dry my canvas with a little blow dryer and paint my dramatic pumpkin. Take a little sip of my tea while I'm doing this. Okay. So initially I was planning on putting the pumpkin over to the right, the left, but I think I'm going to be doing it over by the right now. Okay, so let's get a little piece of chalk, and I'm going to make my pumpkin about here. I might even write something at the top, so I'm going to leave the top a little bit open so that I can write a little message. So here's my pumpkin. Okay. I put my sunflower here, just sort of centered. And my silver dollar eucalyptus, I'm going to put maybe like over here. I want some greenery. So I want to get some little greens in there. All right, let's get some paints. And then I'll show you how I did these little cards. If you have time to stick around to the end of this painting session, we'll take our little pumpkin decor and make some little cards. So I want some white. I'm going to make this a little on the warm side. So I'm going to get some burnt sienna, my new favorite brown. And of course I'm going to need some yellow. I definitely want my sunflower to be the traditional yellow sunflower. I might even orange it up a little bit. So I'm going to get some red orange or fire red. Then I'll mix my own orange. And then I definitely want to have some greens because I want to do that nice sagey silver dollar eucalyptus. Okay, so a little bit of green. So black, white, some yellow and orange. Yellow and red to make some orange. Make sure you get an orangey red, either like cadmium red medium or a fire red if you're using Blick paint. A brown. You can use burnt umber. I'm using burnt sienna this time. I'm just going to give it a try. And our white. Okay, so to start with my dramatic pumpkin, oh, you know what? Let me plug in my microphone. Sorry, I've been away for the weekend and I'm... Ooh. Whoa, my microphone almost went into my tea. That was close. Alrighty, let's see here. All right, so we've got our beautiful black, and for the white, we're going to start with the white pumpkin, and I'm going to go a slightly warmer white so that I can use white, straight white as a highlight. So I'm going to tint it a tiny bit so that it is a little bit on the darker side. Just a tiny bit of brown, a tiny little bit of black, just to get a little bit of a warmer color. So when you're painting a pumpkin, if you've drawn them, you probably have a little better sense of their shape and contour. That's why it's good to practice drawing them. But if you haven't, you're going to start with the middle section. Now imagine if your pumpkin is larger than your canvas, you want to make sure that you are painting the center one in the same direction as you would if you were painting the whole pumpkin. This would normally go down to about here. So my brush strokes are going to go down to there. And then I'm going to brush it lightly over here because I want to keep it dark. I want to try and keep this area a little dark. So I'm just maybe taking a little bit of water. Now with water, I'm thinning down the paint and letting the black of the canvas show through. So it's very transparent, especially down here. You see how I left it kind of, it's a little darker here because I just use a tiny bit of water. Good morning, Barbara. Good morning, Renee. And as it dries, I'm going to add more and more white to the top of my pumpkin. Right now, it's just going to blend, so I'll just leave it for now. Let it dry. All right, now let's work on the greenery. So I'm going to switch to a smaller brush because we want to make some little circular leaves and a couple of pointy leaves. So a silver dollar eucalyptus. Now, if you're looking, first let me show you a reference I'm using. If you're looking for something, for some foliage to add to like a painting, you can Google search like centerpieces, make a great idea for this. So if you can see this centerpiece, you can see the different foliage on here. This is probably a silver dollar eucalyptus back here. There's a lot of different leaves here, but just pick one or two that you really like. And what I like about this is that there's some dark leaves and some light leaves. And there's even some that have a little more yellow in them. So you have a very sagey green contrasting a yellowy green. So I love that. So I'm just going to pick two leaf shapes. I'm going to do a silver dollar eucalyptus, and then I'm just going to do some kind of random pointy leaf. So I have a round and a pointy. So let's get our, I'm going to just use up our normal number 6 round. And let's just get a little bit of a green and white mixture. A little bit of white just so it's opaque. And I'm going to just put a little stem out there. And I want some silver eucalyptus over my pumpkin, but I'll have to wait until that's dry. I'm going to put one right there. And I'll maybe add another little sprig. There's not much space here. I'm trying to figure out where do I want to go. The sunflower might have its own leaf, but I can ignore that if I want. Maybe I'll just paint a little bit of a green leaf in here for the pumpkin. I'm sorry, for the sunflower. Now these are just little stems. I'm just creating a couple little stems. They can go off in any direction from behind the pumpkin. Now we're going to use the black background to our advantage because it's going to make the drama that I wanted to create in the beginning. So I'm just going to take my green and white and I'm going to paint a little round leaf. Okay, so there's some silver dollar eucalyptus. The first coat, you might need to add a little highlight when this dries, because remember when you're painting on black, it does take sometimes a second coat, and when it dries darker. But that's actually really good because when it dries darker, it gives us a chance to add more highlights, which are always more exciting anyway. So there's our little silver dollar eucalyptus. Now I'm going to make some pointier leaves and I'm going to mix a little yellow so I have a different green. We want to have a few varieties of green. So I'm just going to put some little pointy leaves here. Okay, I might add a few over the pumpkin. So we've started the process. I actually have 3 different leaves because I decided to put this leaf in here, which is probably the leaf for my flower. I'm going to add a tiny bit of black down at the bottom of this leaf. All right, so we have the 1 leaf for our sunflower, silver dollar eucalyptus, and then I just did a couple little pointy leaves. So for our sunflower, I'm going to do the center, which is usually like a dark brown. So I'm going to just use my burnt sienna and a little bit of black. Now I'm going to start with my leaves, and I want my leaves for, the petals for the sunflower to have a deep, just like the background has this deep dark shadow, I want to have a deep dark shadow around my petals. So I'm going to start darker by mixing the burnt sienna and yellow, just a tiny bit of white. I need a tiny bit of white to make it opaque, so just let's get a dark, dark yellow with this beautiful burnt sienna. It's already lighter, but it's going to be really dramatic when we start adding the yellows and the whites. So let's just put in our petals. You can make this painting brushy. You can make it a little bit cleaner. I'm going to kind of go a little brushy because I kind of want it to look a little brushy, a little fun and spontaneous. I'm not too thrilled with the back of the pumpkin showing through. I'm probably going to have to do something about that. I should have left it black, but that's okay. We'll just darken it in. So there's my dark layer. My first dark layer of sunflower browns. Now I'm going to add some light layers. I might need to let it dry. Let's just add a few layers of a brighter yellow. So I'm going to get a little bit of white and yellow. Notice I'm still sticking around by the browns. Yeah, that's lightening up nicely. So it's blending a tiny bit, so I'm just going to lighten them up a little bit. I don't want to get too close to the center. I want to leave the center a little darker. So I'm concentrating more on the middle or the tips of the petals, letting that beautiful brown I did kind of stay around the middle. So a little second layer of some little bit lighter. We're going to lighten it a lot more, but that's a good start for a nice deep, dark, dramatic background. Okay, so now I'm going to switch back to my flat brush to work on the pumpkin. So the pumpkin, I'm going to go into straight white and start to add the highlights. I'm going to take it slowly so I get a gradual highlight, because I want a lot of this background black to be my shadow. See if I can do that. Okay, and I'm going to add some more white in a heavier. I'm going to put it pretty thick now on the top, just giving it nice heavy, just like we did on Twisted Sister. I'm holding the brush flat and using it a little bit more like a little palette knife. So I'm just patting the pumpkin, leaving it very white at the top. Whoops. Whoopsie. Letting the darker shades stay. All right, so I want to write a little word in here. So I think I might just write the word fall. And if I want to do that, I'm going to have to leave some space in here. So let me just put a little. Yeah, I'll just do that. And a little bit of pencil, just to give myself, leave some space in there for that little word. And I'm going to do my stem over here, kind of moving towards my fall. So let's just get a little bit of white and gray, a tiny bit of brown for our stem. Leave some little bits of black because that's going to be your shadow. Remember, we're going for drama here, so the black is our friend. It's going to help us it's going to make it easier because we don't have to paint as much, and it's going to make all the beautiful shadows that we don't have to worry about painting. We can just focus on the highlights. So I'm going to take a tiny bit of white and just give some little streaks to my stem. Doesn't be anything crazy. And we'll see how it looks as it dries. Everything has to dry, be reassessed, and then touched up because it changes as it dries. All right, so I think I'm going to give this a little blow dry. I'm not so crazy about this bottom section, but I know I'm going to be painting some more greenery. So I am leaving it kind of dark. So I'm thinking I might need to have some contrast between my leaves down here. Let me think. Well, I'm just going to wing it, and if I need to darken it or lighten it, I'll do it, or I'll go around my leaves. So I'm going to take some more of the green and white, and I'm going to make some more silver dollar eucalyptus. Whoop. Make tiny ones on the tips. Whoops. This is just green and white. There's no yellow because the silver dollar eucalyptus is a little on the silvery side. So do you see how that barely shows up on there? So I need to make a decision if I'm going to paint the background black or make these darker. I think I might make these leaves a little darker. So to darken them, I'm going to use a tiny, tiny bit of blue. Just a smidgen. And maybe a tiny little bit of black. So I'm going to mix a darker green to go against the lighter pumpkin and the lighter green against the darker background. It'll still look about like the same leaf, but we need to create contrast, and we can't do that unless we darken something and lighten something. That's the problem solving that comes when you're painting your own paintings. Do you want to darken it or lighten it? Or darken the background? So we're going to do darkening the leaves. And you can even darken like a little edge. That is also a way to add contrast. You don't need to darken the entire leaf. I can come in and take just a little pointy brush, like this little script. I'm going to break out a tiny brush, this little guy. And just with this little tiny brush, I'm going to get a little bit of black and blue, mix a slightly darker green, and maybe just along a corner or an edge, just add a little pop of darkness. Because if you can't see it, then you want to just maybe give it a little pop of something. A little bit of dark, a little bit of light. Okay, so I like that dark, and it actually looks like these are the same color because the background is just changing, or the lighting's changing. Okay, so there's our little silver dollar eucalyptus, and I'll make my my pointy leaf too. So I'm going to use green. I'm still going to use a little of this black mixture because I do want to make these also dark at the base, but I will highlight them with green and yellow. So remember we had two leaves. We had a pointy leaf and a round leaf. My pointy leaf has a yellowy green, so I want it to be pretty distinctly different. So I'm going to add yellow and white to my green and make the tips of these a little bit more yellowy white. This is going to really bring some beautiful contrast in the colors. So contrast can be in between black and white, and it can also be contrast between colors, like yellow green and blue green are going to be two different types of greens. So that's a little contrast within the color. So I'm focusing a little bit more on the tips, just giving them a little tiny pop of this yellowy green. Looks like I need another one in the middle here. I love the pumpkin as the backdrop here. It's like the pumpkin's not really the main event. The pumpkin's kind of like a nice little backdrop. All right, so I'm going to add a second coat to this silver dollar eucalyptus. And now remember, this green has no yellow. It's just green and white and even maybe a little bit of blue. Get a little bit more green in there. So you don't have to paint over the whole leaf. You can always leave a little bit of your original darker green. That gives that some interest. The second layer is always going to look better than the first. So the first layer has to be done, but the second layer is where it's going to start looking nicer. Okay, so there's our, maybe this needs a little pop of light down here. There's our silver dollar eucalyptus, making a nice popping contrast against the black background. Now let's work on our sunflower, and I'm going to go back to my slightly larger brush because I think that this will make a fatter petal for our sunflower. And I already did all the darker, beautiful orangey browns. So now I'm going to just really focus on the yellows and whites and make our sunflower really pop. So this is about drama. That's what I wanted to focus on today, was making drama. And then, and drama is this harsh contrast between dark and light. So we kept things kind of on the dark side, and now we're going to just be popping out the light, but I'm going to be just doing one petal at a time, just giving it a little couple of strokes, seeing how much of that orange and brown do I want to leave behind. So I'm going to try to do this a little bit more sparingly, because I really want to have my beautiful oranges and browns look very popping. I might need to even add a little more orange and brown. We'll see. So I'm just taking one petal at a time, giving it a little love. Painting on the tip. And I'm painting on the tip, and then I'm just lightly, softly dragging it towards the middle. So it creates a slight transition without me having to blend on such a tiny canvas. Maybe put I'm going to put a few little random leaves, just kind of smaller ones. Okay, so now I'm going to come around with a second coat of white and yellow so that I can even pop it out even more. Pop out that color. Now I'm just barely touching each petal, just giving the tip and maybe one side a little brush with this white yellow. Some can have little curves. You can make them a little expressive by giving them little curves or little making them. You can make them more messy than mine. And the last little highlight I'm going to add is a few white. So I just took straight white on my brush, and now I'm just going to do a couple little pops of white, especially where the background's dark. Do you see where the background's dark? That's where I want my white. Okay, so we want to give some little interest to our center. So let's go back to the center. I'm going to add a little bit of black around the edges. I need a little bit of black around the edges to get some more drama. And then in the middle, I'm going to add some little tiny bit of yellow and white. Maybe some burnt sienna. Now I think what I'm missing on this, because it is a fall painting, is a little bit of orange. So I'm going to go back to I put this red down here and I never used it. I'm going to mix it with some yellow and get some orange. Take a little white to brighten it up. And I'm going to add some of this orange into the base of my sunflower. It's missing that little pizzazz that I was hoping to have, that extra pop of orange, or that dark to light. I want that nice dark to light in the petals. Now I'm going to go with the straight red, and I'm just going to tuck a couple pieces of straight red in here. Oh yeah, that was necessary. I'm going to do a little more because I love it. So I'm going to put red actually right around the whole edge. Now I'm not making a whole stripe, but I am painting it into the flower a little bit, giving it a nice dramatic red. Now remember, when you paint on black, everything dries darker. So you might be finding yourself doing 2 or 3 layers, and don't worry if you are. Just keep working on it until you get it to the point that you're satisfied. I'm going to add a few little brownish streaks to my stem. And let's see, I don't want to get too crazy on my stem because I'm going to be writing my word. Okay. I think I even need more white on my pumpkin. So now that this layer is dried, even though I put it on thick, it dried and it kind of faded a little bit. So I'm going to do it a little bit more white. Now I don't want to get the white too close to my sunflowers. I kind of like that little shadow behind the sunflower. So I'm just going to try and keep it away from the sunflower. And I have, it looks kind of like a white edge here. So I'm going to take a little bit of water and just sort of soften that edge so I don't have a white rectangle on my pumpkin. Okay, so more white. More white on the tops. And then just lightly sort of fade it towards your greenery or go around it a little bit. Okay, so I'm getting more white built up on the top of my pumpkin so it's really bright and highlighted. I think I need some more yellow on my sunflowers. This paint, you know, the paint can be a little transparent, so when you're working with transparent paint, you have to go with a couple more layers. So if you were using a thicker paint, you might be done already and have that nice opaque highlight. But you can't, your sunflowers cannot be too bright. I mean, that's the whole beauty of a sunflower, right? It's just to have all those gorgeous yellow and white petals. So pop them out, pop out those corners, those edges. Okay, now that is shiny, and against this black, it looks so pretty. Now when I painted my black underpainting, there were some areas that were not quite that black, so I'm actually going to add a little bit of black to my background just to make sure it's solid. This is a good time too if you want to fix your stem, or if it got too fat, just take some black and trim it down a little bit. So I'm going to just paint it black, and I'm going to, don't worry about painting over my little drawing. That my word, that was just for placement, but I am going to write it back on. So I'm adding some black to the background to make sure my black is really nice and rich and solid. It was a little transparent before. So this is, I mean, this is a very classic scene in terms of the combination of the pumpkin and the sunflower, but I think we made it more original by creating a unique composition, making it pretty dramatic with the blacks. I might even come down here and add some blacks down here. I'm going to add a little bit of shadow on my pumpkin, maybe with some little bit of black. Yeah, I kind of like that extra black near the bottom. Just covering up more of the pumpkin. It makes some more of my flowers and my greenery pop. Okay, so I added a little more black to the bottom. Looking pretty dramatic. Now while this dries, I'm going to paint the black edges, because when it dries, I'm going to write on it. And I'm going to show you a little pen that I have that will hopefully work on this canvas. Okay, don't know what that is. Let me try this one. draw on a canvas, you really want to make sure that everything's dry. So I'm going to paint around the edges, I'm going to blow dry this, and we're going to get a beautiful little phrase or word. I think I'm just going to put fall on there because it's short, sweet. So paint your edges really fast. It's nice when you have a black background, you don't have to worry about getting on the front, just paint around it. Clean up my pumpkin. Okay, so there's the edges are beautiful. And let's blow dry this so that we can write, I'm going to write fall on it. This is so cute, and the reason I wanted it to be very dramatic is because when you have this little small canvas, when you put it somewhere in your house, it's going to have way more impact if you have contrast. So I'm just going to write fall. Kind of a little bounce lettering. All right, that's so cute. All right, so there's my little canvas for today. Adorable. Thanks, Shireen. Okay, so now, like I promised earlier, we have a few minutes left in the hour, and I was going to share with you just a couple little quick designs and spark some creativity in you if you wanted to make some little holiday cards. I've painted cards before in the inner circle for Christmas, but I don't know if I've done any for fall. So these are actually watercolor paper, but you can use your acrylic paints on them. And since I already have the acrylic paints already out, why just throw my palette away when I can do a card or two? So when you're doing a card, don't worry about overthinking it and making it really complicated, because most likely you're going to be painting several. So I'm going to actually make the most of my paints, and I'm going to paint 2 cards at the same time. So let's put this over here so you can see it. It's so cute. And here's the little, did I just get something on that? Oh, I did. So here's one of the little card sets, and here's the other. The envelope I painted on accident, so we're going to have to write over the address. So let's see, we have, make sure I have my cards, not the envelopes. Okay, those are the envelopes. Here's the 2 cards. All right, so we're just going to do some quick little fun pumpkins on here. I hope the video didn't freeze. It looks like it's still going on my end. So I'm going to use let's just use a small round brush and see what we can do with that. I'm going to use a small round brush, and since I'm on white paper, I'm not going to paint a white pumpkin. I'm going to paint an orange pumpkin. So let's get some really beautiful deep orange. And let's do a little, hold on. Maybe this one will make upright. So I'm going to do this pumpkin, give me a little space to paint something down below. So I'm going to paint my middle oval. And then just going to paint my little parentheses around the pumpkin. Now, since it's watercolor paper, I'm going to just use a tiny bit more water and fill this in a nice, free, brushy, light way. So I don't want to use too much water and get my card to buckle too much, but a little bit of water will get some spreading going on. Now do you see I took the darker orange, I painted up from the bottom, and I can let the light of the paper be the highlight. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit, and I want to paint some pretty greenery and some little sunflowers on here. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did before with some of my leaves. So I have my yellowy green. So just make up maybe 2 green leaves, maybe 3. I'm going to do a little tiny one. And each little leaf can just be a single brush stroke. You can just go make it a little, like making a little apostrophe. You want to get your brush a little round. So I'm just making this first one a soft green. That one was a little not soft, but that's okay. It's okay to have variations in your greens. That's part of the fun of just painting little fun botanicals, is watching the different greens pop up. So there's a few of those. Those are tiny and yellow. So now I'm going to go big and silver. So silver meaning like a blue-green. So I'm going to go blue and green and white. I'm going to paint some pretty large ones now. So just making round-ish dots to make the eucalyptus. And eucalyptus leaves can turn, so they can be facing you, or they can kind of like turn away from you and be a little more flat, like a coin. And I'm letting this dry, but I do want to overlap some of my greens onto the oranges. So I want it to look like this pumpkin is kind of like nestled in some pretty greenery. So I'm letting some of that dry. Okay, filling it in. And now I want a third. I think I'm going to need a third of something. Now I can make little sunflowers. And if I want to make little sunflowers to make this pop, which would be really pretty, I'm just going to take some black and green. I'm sorry. You know what? Actually, yeah. I'm going to make 2. Make one here. And I'll make one here. While I have this on the black, I'm going to make a little stem. Okay, so for our petals, I'm going to use a lot of white and yellow to make them really, I grabbed a little bit of orange in there on purpose. And if I make these really thick and blobby, then they'll just be a one-stroke petal. So I want to make them nice and thick and blobby, so they just stand out and they're just a nice little quick flower. Yeah, that worked. And I can always come in and reshape the center. If you get too much paint in the center, don't worry about it. Just come in and add a little dot. This is a great exercise in caring less, because while you want them to look cute, you don't want to have to make each one like a label, you know, this gigantic project. But that's really pretty. And I'm gonna reshape the centers because the centers got a little bit lost when I did my petals. So let's just get a little extra little brown in there. And we'll put a couple little darker green. Feeling the need for a little tiny pop of dark in my greenery. So I'm just going to add a couple little random leaves. All right, so that's done. That's a cute little card. And then if you have a pretty black pen, which I just have a regular black pen, I'm going to just write down here, I'm going to write thanks. I tried to make it bouncy, but I didn't do a good job. I would say if you're going to write a letter, write a word on there, maybe practice it on paper a couple times. So you can do a little something like that. And let's do a little matching envelope. So for the matching envelope, all I'm going to do is a little sunflower and my eucalyptus. I should have painted this at the same time I was painting the pumpkin, but we'll just go back to the colors. And all you need to do is just make just a few. You don't need to have a lot. It's just a little accent to your card. So let's get white and yellow. Make a little sunflower. And I'm just going to add a little bit of deeper orange on this one. Since there's no orange from the pumpkin, I'm just going to add a few little pieces of orange, little orange strokes to my flower, just to give it a little pop. And I'm going to give a little highlight to some of my petals here. Okay, so there's a cute little card. So this was just a little extra little fun idea to try if you wanted to create some little fun stationery. I got these little cards and envelopes at Blick Art Supplies, and I'm just using the leftover acrylic paint from my other little painting. Anytime you have some extra, if you keep a little set of cards by your desk, and let's say you work on a painting and you still have some wet paints on your palette, you can just use up some of those paints and make a few little greeting cards for some friends. All right, guys, I'm going to stop there, and I hope you enjoyed this morning's morning mini, especially this is our little canvas morning mini that I wanted to make extra dramatic, and I think it looks pretty dramatic. I'm going to take the little chalk off of here and make it look, there we go. All right, well, if you guys try painting this, whether it's a 4x4 or maybe you try it a little larger, I'm sure it'll look adorable in your home. I might even stand mine, kind of place it next to a pumpkin somewhere, and you'll have adorable little Halloween decor that you could even keep up after Halloween. All right, bye everybody. Bye Bonnie and Laura. Thanks for joining, and have a great rest of your Monday.